Hello and welcome to Book Lovers Companion, the podcast about books, authors, their craft and more. I'm your host Edith, and this episode is again about the more of our podcast. I'm joined by editor Jennica Dotson, and she constantly seeks literary thrills, which I hope she will talk more about. Hello Jennica and welcome to Book Lovers Companion.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. And as I said, you are a seeker of thrills, which is absolutely wonderful. Aren't we all? Those who are readers seek thrills all the time, don't we? But you also do a lot of work behind the scenes for a lot of authors. And we spoke about a common acquaintance and friend of ours, Laurie Egan. She spoke very highly of you, and let me quote what she has to say about you. She says, Jennica Dotson is a splendid line editor as well as an excellent plot and character analyst who is willing to roll up her sleeves and tackle even the most complex manuscript. She takes great pains to get what an author is trying to accomplish and suggests ways the writer can bring that vision to fruition. A sensitive, smart, responsive and delightful copy editor. High praise indeed.
So kind. Very kind words. And I've loved working with Laurie, so I'm glad that she feels the same way.
And I wanted to ask you about how one does become an editor. What does one need to do before you can sit down and work as an editor?
It's a good question. The paths can be different, definitely. I went a little bit the more, I would almost say old-fashioned. Not that people aren't still doing it, obviously, but I didn't go, the master's in publishing or editing route. I much more did internships and on-the-job experiential learning. And that's how I kind of made my first steps. And it really just built and built from there. So I just realized I had the interest, took some, writing courses mainly to begin with, which I was already interested in to a degree, and then sought out some internships, got, a more stable position through that, got more experience, and then just really built myself up to a place where I felt I had enough experience to work as a freelancer as well. So that's kind of how it unrolled for me.
Okay, and I asked that question another guest of mine because it's always interesting for writers to know what each of these things mean. It says in your description on your webpage, it says you are a developmental, line and copy editor. Can you break down for us in a few sentences what each of these different hats you have to put on mean for you, for your work?
Definitely. And I love talking about the differences, but I also always like to start when I'm speaking with authors, or in this case with you, letting them know to make sure any editor they're speaking with to have the discussion again, because there are going to be variations from editor to editor. Sometimes, usually more on a minuscule level, but sometimes it's even folks using terms differently a bit. I've seen people kind of swap how I use line and copy editing. I think mine are the more standard, but it's just really good to know exactly who you're working with and what it means to them and to you. So for me, and largely speaking, developmental editing is the big picture. It's very content based. It's about the plot and the structure, the characters, all those ingredients that go into a story, how that's all working together, the world building, setting, etc. Then line editing is the next stage from there. So I'm kind of going in order of how I see the process. Next would be line editing, which is a line by line stylistic edit largely. Sometimes it involves copy editing, which obviously I'll get to next, but I suppose copy editing is specifically for fixing errors mainly, like catching typos and grammar or punctuation errors and just cleaning those up. And so line editing can either include that or not. I choose to. There are reasons to do it either way, because you might imagine if you're doing a line edit and making some stylistic suggestions, the author will then make some further changes that could introduce new copy errors. So it's always good to have another round of either copy editing and or proofreading afterward. But since I am both a line and copy editor, I like to give that to my authors in one package if they're interested. So those are kind of the broad differences between them.
And is it unusual that you offer all those services, or is it fairly common?
That's a great question. I don't think it's uncommon.
Mm,
Um, but I also think plenty of editors specialize a little bit more in one
mm,
vein, and or just over time
okay.
will start by offering more while they're trying to get work and see what works
Mm,
best for them, and then often wind up specializing. I'd say over time,
mm,
maybe that will happen with me, but for the amount of years I've been editing, I've really enjoyed all of them, which is why I started my freelance business with
mm,
offering all of them. I find personally that, I've built up the skill sets for each of them. I enjoy each of them,
mhm,
and it can be really nice to have the variation, right?
mhm,
Because, let's say I just did 2 developmental edits in a row and I'm really in this big picture headspace and looking at all the interlocking details of
okay.
the story contents and then write a big letter at the end. It can be really nice to then switch to a line or copy edit where you do get to put on the different
Mhm,
hat and
mhm,
say, okay, I'm not worrying as much about that. Sure, I'll flag any major plot holes, but generally otherwise, if I'm doing a line edit, I'm focused on the style of the language and just flow and the sound of it and polishing up the word choice, etc. And so I like having the kind of fresh air from project to project that allows me. And I would expect the same is true for other editors who also like to dip into different pools.
mhm. And when an author seeks your services, what should he or she should have done beforehand? Is there anything you would recommend they should do before they um, take you up on your services? What would that be?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of preemptive research that authors can do to get a sense of, you don't have to know everything. Absolutely not. We're going to be the experts, me, other editors, and are happy to walk folks through the process and explain things. But, coming in with a general idea of where you think you're at in the process or what you might need, obviously helpful. But I always like to, if someone does reach out to me, I like to have what's called a discovery call at the very front of the process for kind of exactly this reason of making sure I see where they're at and give my thoughts of whether they're ready to do a service with me or if there might be things they want to continue doing first. And so, can work at different stages of the writing process. Most of the authors I work with have at least a finished draft of a manuscript. I occasionally work with folks who have an incomplete draft and want a little bit more help along the way. But generally, I anticipate authors having a finished draft or expectation of a soon to be finished draft when they reach out. Um, I'm trying to think what else I really recommend ahead of time. I work with a lot of newer or first time authors, so I often am not looking for much more than that because I have frequently been kind of their first line of defense into the publishing world and can give those initial pointers of here's where you want to start. Um, so yeah, I don't look too far beyond that. I suppose that's particularly true of the developmental editing and early other stages. If someone is looking for a line edit, then I would say, I recommend making sure you've t- finished the draft, left it alone for at least a few weeks. A month is great. And then come back to it, read it over, make your own edits, and then hand it off for the polish, right? Because I, as an editor, can elevate what's there. That's my job and what I love to do. But the more elevated it is in the first place, the more I can elevate it. So the better it gets, if that makes sense. Like, if obviously I do not actually apply these numbers to things, this is like not how writing works. But theoretically, I can take a level 1 manuscript up to, a level 3 maybe. But if it comes in at already they've done their own polish and really amped it up a little bit to what they can manage to a level 2 or 3, then maybe I can get it to a 4 or a 5. So just slapping numbers on it to conceptualize it that way, and that's what I would recommend for line edits.
It's interesting what you said and what others have said before you is that, I mean, I understand it, I get it. Finish or see as far as you can get with your manuscript, even as you said, finish it and then let it sit for a while and then take a look at it again. I always, since I'm a teacher, I will think of my poor students. They don't have the time to let an assignment sit for at least a month because you know
Nope.
they have to hand it in, and maybe it would have been better for them if they had been able to let it sit for a while. Very oftentimes it would have been better. But anyway, I absolutely get it. And from an editor's point of view in this case, would you say that it is a good advice to take at least into consideration what an editor suggests?
Once you, like, get the edits back? Yes. I mean, certainly. I I would hope so, right? That's what we're here for, we want to help. I think, honestly, my ideal outcome when I hand edits back to the author, and I sometimes do or don't get insight into what does happen at that stage, but what I hope for is that they will find the majority of my suggestions helpful and that they
Mm,
ring true, and I think authors are most receptive to that when, as they should be, edits are really they show that the editor understood the heart of the story and is really working toward making that shine even further and is not trying to just change it for the sake of it or change it into something else.
mm,
So if you can show them that, which I of course try to do, I think that comes across better and makes
mm,
people maybe a little more amenable to accepting
yeah.
suggestions, even though it's very easy. We all, I think, have the defensiveness reaction, which is completely fair. I will not even pretend I don't too. Um, but I I therefore, of course, recommend folks try to stay open and
Mm, yeah.
willing to sit with a thought. Like, if you have the defensive reaction, at least maybe leave it alone for a second, and wait for that to subside a little bit and kind of come back to it when you can have taken a step back and be more open. But also, it is important to know when you disagree. And so that's
Mm,
what I was going to say initially is my ideal is that most of my suggestions are helpful and they feel good about that and they want to accept most of them, but that there are some they don't. I love
mm,
hearing from like I accepted most of your suggestions and then rejected a few that didn't quite fit my voice or I meant something else. I wanted something else in that moment. And I'm like, perfect. That's exactly it because that shows that I was able to help, but also that you know yourself and your writing well enough that you know what you want to get out of this and you know the instances where I wasn't quite on the mark with it and you can distinguish between the two. So I think that's
yeah.
great.
Yeah. Would you also agree that this is a process that takes time and can't be rushed?
I would agree with that. I think that's important, and it's important to know ahead of time.
Mm,
Um, and it can be easy to feel impatient,
mm,
certainly. Or just sometimes people just don't know how long
mm,
the process can take, and that's understandable. But I think something I see recurring with generally authors who are newer to the industry, for example, is not yet having the understanding of how long that process can be. And so it can lead to some disappointed expectations of, I have this draft right now and I want to send it for this edit, get it back maybe sooner than is reasonable, and then be querying it a week later. And that's not typically going to be the case because
mm,
it is a longer process of
yeah.
the editing might take longer than you expect. And also once you get it back, it might take more time than you expect to go through them and or make your own changes afterwards. So I'm definitely, I think the urge to like go and get there sooner rather than later is understandable. But the more that if people have the time, which hopefully would be great, I think understanding that it does require that sometimes is helpful.
Absolutely. And do you think that in the traditional publishing world these days, there is also a lot of pressure on the editors themselves, because I often wonder, as a reader,
Mhm.
when you pick up a book from a traditional published house, that the editor was under so much pressure that he or she couldn't even spend so much time on these books as they would have deserved or would have been necessary. Is it a complete wrong impression, or is there something truth to it, do you think?
I think there is probably truth to that. I have less direct experience in those spaces, so what I know is partially speculation and partially just what I hear from people in my network. Um, where I have worked besides freelancing within the publishing industry has actually been semi-unique spaces that actually give me more control and flexibility than I think a lot of editors have, so very grateful for that. But that is certainly what I've heard from the connections I have closer to the, big 5 or traditional publishing, is that those pressures have maybe increased and time, schedules have shrunk. Um, so I think you're correct. That is also what I have heard. Um, and part of what I think is also then relevant and a little unfortunate to a degree is my impression has also been that traditional publishers expect more polished submissions, or like are less willing to take on less polish and like do the work afterward. It's, they require a higher level of polish before they'll even really consider you, and that's not necessarily always the case, but I do think it's become a little more limiting, um and then they spend less time perhaps in-house afterward. It has been, again, my impression. I'm not the most expert on that particular area, but
Hmm. Yeah, well, hmm, one wonders.
yeah.
Absolutely. And now I forgot what I wanted to ask. Yeah, you said you also mentioned it, the copy editing process about punctuation, grammar, and finding and fixing typos. And what about the language itself? Meaning, do you draw the line with American English? Just asking, because you do know that if someone writes British English,
Sure.
people always say, "Oh, there are so many typos in this book." No, there are not typos.
Definitely. I think that's one of those where I would hope to establish that up front, because to me as an editor, what matters is not whether we're working in American English or British English or what have you, but consistency. So if I know that we're working in British English, then I will try to maintain consistency
Mm,
with how words should be spelled in that style. And similarly with American, right? Because sometimes people are writing in American English, but the Britishisms will slip through. And generally, it's just recommended to stay consistent with the
mm,
rules of whatever you're writing within, and or people can make their own individual choices. I worked on a line edit recently that was primarily in American English, but they let me know up front that they intentionally had some British English in there
mm,
because that came from some of their past, and they
mm.
wanted to maintain that. And it was like, great, then I know not to touch that, and not to
Okay.
leave a comment saying maybe you want this version instead. So it's, to me, entirely about consistency, as opposed to trying to impose Americanisms on everybody.
It's interesting because, come to think of it, when we think about traditionally published authors and what I've heard from academia as well, and given that my first language is German, there is also the difference between German and Austrian German, of course. And in academia, it's oftentimes easier, according to people who know about that, if you use German instead of Austrian German. So there's also the question of changing the spelling and the vocab for the American audience. I think they did it with J.K. Rowling's books as well, also the title and so on. What's your thought on that?
What is my thought on that? Um, as a person, as an individual myself, I if I were the puppet master controlling the entire publishing industry worldwide, I don't know that I would wish that to be necessary. I mean, I'm probably biased by the fact that I like, you know, media, books and otherwise from other countries. And so I'm used to that and I feel like American audiences, for example, shouldn't be unable to read a book that is in anyway, maybe I'm putting too much of myself into this conversation, but you know, I but that's not realistically maybe how it works. Maybe more so than it used to. I don't even know if that's true. But the other angle beyond me as an individual who has thoughts about things is publishing as a business. And if one is trying to enter the American publishing landscape, they do still abide by kind of that is generally going to be the case. Like as a freelancer, I will edit to what someone's preferred style or, you know, language format is. Um, but let's say I did that and then they queried a traditional publisher with British English, that publisher might still then be like, okay, we're going to switch this to American English, is probably how that would go. So I think just recognizing the reality of that isn't bad if one wants to be in the business, could be worth, you know, considering such factors. But I personally would happily read something that has just been left in British English or otherwise.
Yeah, I do agree. On a personal level, absolutely. Because an acquaintance of ours, she's in her, what now, 90s, nearly 100, and she once told us, if I go to the library and I look at the book and I open the book and I see, oh, American English, I'm not interested. Uh, no, no time for that. Well, it's the other way around, as one can see. And may I ask, it also says on your webpage that your speciality is fantasy. How
Yes.
come?
How come? Ooh, I mean, that feels. I've just always loved fantasy best as, you know, a reader, even from a young age. So I think it, you know, goes hand in hand both because, well, this is my favorite genre to read. So it makes sense that I would enjoy editing it as well. But also, therefore, I have the most experience with it. And so for me, at least, I know some editors edit in genres they read less or more of, but I think the genres I work with are the same ones I read, and my preference and experience level kind of matches up to how much I read them to some degree. So I don't know. I've always loved those fantasy worlds, and I think I'm very character driven largely, or at least I lean that way over just being compelled by a really cool world or concept. So I think what I have loved over the whole course of my life with fantasy is seeing very genuine feeling people and relationships and dynamics, both interpersonally and on a broader scale, like between societies and cultures, play out in these fantastical spaces where either you're adding magic and such into the mix, or, you know, you can use some of those metaphorically, you can use them to drive particular dynamics in new ways and explore that. So I think that's kind of where the appeal comes from for me.
Uh, that would have been one of my questions for you, and since you stated it already on your website, so is it the case with other editors as well that they say that they have a special genre they like to concentrate on, or not at all?
I think it's again not uncommon. Um, One often in editor spaces hears the advice, I would say, that focusing in on one's niche
Mm.
can be quite helpful, actually, because you might initially think the broader my options, you know, if I have 10 genres or if I work with all genres, then I can work with anybody and anybody will approach me. But I think when authors see that you recognize, like, I'm zeroed into this particular genre or genres, it can really bring in both the stories you most want to work with and the authors who really are best suited for you. So I haven't quite niched down that far because I enjoy the variety and I enjoy this smorgasbord of genres to a degree.
Mhm.
But I think a lot of specialization happens and narrowing down of interests, especially over time. Yeah, that's what I've seen.
Mm. Does it make one a better editor, do you think, if you specialize in certain genres?
I think having some amount of specialty, yes. Um, but again, doesn't need to be narrowed down
Mm,
to two by any means.
mm,
That's not to discount anyone who's got a broader range, but I do think it's just one of those that if you have kind of built up your mastery
mhm,
in
mhm.
a particular vein, that can shine through. So, yeah.
Yeah, 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 understandable. So, what is for you as an editor, what is, your greatest challenge, would you say?
Ooh. Ooh, what is my greatest challenge? Uh, that's a great question. Maybe, maybe for myself, I will say scope creep, um, which is being compelled to do work outside the bounds of what you're supposed to be doing. So, in my case, being a developmental line and copy editor, if I am copy editing, it is not helpful for my place to give developmental feedback. Again, I would probably, unless instructed otherwise, point out if there's like a major plot hole because people typically want to know such things. But beyond that, like if I am reading something, just as a reader, even, I'll have thoughts on, oh, this character arc didn't quite hit for me the way I think it could have. Maybe I could have tweaked again as a reader. I'm thinking this, sitting on my couch with a book in my free time. Um, and so it's not always possible to fully turn off that brain, regardless of what type of editing I'm doing. And so it's just really having to be I think I'm okay at actually effectively limiting the feedback I'm giving. It's more the getting my brain on board and reminding it that just to accept what is and that I don't need to be doing all things for everything because that's just not how it works. So I think that's my biggest ongoing challenge that I work on is just myself and staying on the track and feeling at ease about that.
And is it hard for you, as you said, when you sit on your couch, you have your own thoughts as an editor also. Is it even possible to completely switch off that editor brain of yours when you read for pleasure?
I not at this point. I think I've fully lost the ability to completely turn it off. I can switch modes a little.
Mm,
I actually had and sometimes it can benefit me, I think,
mm,
which is also interesting. I had an experience recently reading a book that I had seen some early not great reviews for, and so I was a little worried. Um,
mhm,
it might not pan out, but I honestly think what happened is that there were some affectations to the writing style that a lot of readers didn't love, and I would agree with some of the critiques. But genuinely, I think I switched into my more developmental mode where because I have to do that for kind of that side of scope creep, right? When you're developmental editing something, you can't worry about the line by line. It just doesn't even matter. That doesn't even
mm,
phase me. Don't it I'm purely taking in the content. And so I think I switched a little bit into that mode where it's like I recognize that there's something happening in the prose that is, not my favorite, but I can fully ignore it to just get the rest of what's happening. And so I think I actually liked it better than some of the other reviewers did. Um, but I I'm still kind of in developmental mode for that one. And I can never turn off the copy editing brain if something is littered with errors. I don't know if any of us can who are tuned into such things, but it's always there. And I find it's true outside of books as well.
mm.
Storytelling general, right? There are some TV shows or movies from my childhood that I revisit, and I'm like, not anymore. I'm too aware. I see the problems.
Yeah, I hear you, I hear you. And May I ask? I mean, you do not have to answer that next question because, it's a bit delicate, I would say. I'm interested. What was your most, or what was your strangest experience you ever had with a manuscript or the author of the manuscript?
Mm.
You don't have to answer, of course, if you've.
No, I appreciate that. I'm trying to think what I would even classify as strange that I've experienced. Um, I've had I feel like I've been very lucky, to be honest, in the authors and manuscripts I've worked with, where they've just been a lot of great relationships.
Mhm.
And yeah, honestly, nothing comes to mind. I'm sure there's something. It's not that I'm answering out of, there's something I don't want to discuss. I'm sure it exists. It's not coming to mind. I'm just, my brain is just like, I don't know. It's all been so lovely. Everyone's so nice. And yeah.
Yeah. Good. I mean, splendid, I would say.
Yeah.
It also says on your homepage that you not only fantasy, but you also do sci-fi, romance, and historical genre. Since I'm an avid reader of a certain genre, I'm missing this one. No crime fiction.
No, I've very occasionally read crime fiction, but I don't I don't think enough to feel, and I haven't studied it in an editorial fashion, so
Oh,
I genuinely just don't think I'm the best suited. Um,
okay.
if it were a friend coming to me, I would happily read their manuscript, and I think a lot of skills transfer.
Mm.
But yeah, not a big one for me. I would love to hear what you love about it, or if you have any favorites that you recommend. I'm always happy to investigate new genres.
I mean, as I said, crime fiction is my all-time favorite, and you can never go wrong with Agatha Christie.
Yeah. Yep.
For that case. And there is, what is his name? I think it is Martin Davis,
Yeah.
who did, I think 8 books now about Sherlock Holmes, but his focus is not on Sherlock Holmes himself, but on his housekeeper, Mrs. Hudson, and her
Interesting.
and the scullery maid. And it's
Okay.
written from the scullery maid's point of view when she's an old woman. She remembers her time when she worked under Mrs. Hudson and the things they experienced and all the adventures they had with Mr. Holmes.
That does sound interesting. I would say the experience with crime fiction I do have is largely those eras. I have read a few Agatha Christie's and enjoyed them, particularly the Murder of Roger Ackroyd, I think is probably
Mm,
my favorite. And then I've read a lot of the Sherlock Holmes, so I enjoy a lot of that. I'm just not up on the contemporary or
mm.
modern crime fiction, which is important, right? If you're going to be editing it. But I'll have to check out the Martin Davis. Is that what it
Martin
was?
Davis. I have to look it up. Let me check real quick. I'm never sure, but there are quite a few people with names that come to mind because we have been the Teacup and I've been to this crime fiction event in Bristol for a few times, and there was also an author with a similar name. Um, Mrs. Hudson. Let's see if it pops up here. Martin Davis. Yeah, Martin
Nice.
Davis, and the first one is Mrs. Hudson and the Spirit's Curse.
That sounds fun. I'll have to check that out.
I enjoyed it. I liked it because I liked the different point of view and
Mhm.
how clever Mrs. Hudson actually is and how many people she knows from her time as a housekeeper in various, houses for the gentry and so on.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I was going to say following in a tradition of, but I don't know when these came out specifically. But I do think in the past decade plus, there's been a big surge of rewriting or branching off from older stories through new perspectives and often
Mm,
bringing a more female or feminist perspective. Certainly, there's a lot of rewriting stories from the villain's perspective.
yeah.
But I think that's been a very interesting trend, and I've seen a lot of those like feminist retellings, but I hadn't known of them specifically in kind of like a murder mystery space like Sherlock Holmes. So that's cool that it's there as well.
Yeah, I absolutely love it, and it's really enjoyable since it's written from the scullery maid's point of view. So
Yeah, I love it.
completely different. And may I ask you, since we spoke about fantasy, the fantasy genre, from your point of view again as an editor, has there been changes over the last decade in the fantasy genre itself?
I think.
Significant changes you would say that happened over the last decade?
Yeah, in the last decade, I think we'd already, and this continues to be true, you know, changed in more contemporary times toward faster paced fantasy and or deep, like limited perspective fantasy, as opposed to there's still plenty of broader sweeping, worldscapes. But I think there'd been a bit of a shift, generally speaking. That was already true perhaps at that point. The other one, though, that in the last 10 years probably is, I would say, the emergence of the romantasy subgenre, which is now arguably, I I I suppose it's still, I don't know. I actually don't know if people consider it a subgenre or genre, because I think it started maybe as a subgenre and has sort of ballooned out so big that it's probably just a genre of its own. So I would say that's the big one, is romantasy becoming so popular. And from that, I think the publishing industry is obviously hopping on that train because they want to go with trends, but also leading to some confusion, honestly, of what is fantasy versus romantasy versus fantasy with romantic plot lines, because they should be different things, right? But I think an issue you can run into is um sometimes things get classified as romantasy that maybe really aren't, and so you're now marketing to the wrong readers. I would say it's kind of similar to an issue that has been ongoing with YA fantasy classifications, which I'm a YA fantasy fan. Um, but I think sometimes you can see what I would consider misclassifications that arguably come from, sometimes it's one of those areas where if a woman has written it, it is more likely to be classified as YA fantasy than perhaps if a man had written it, is what I have personally feel like I've noticed. And I don't think I'm alone in feeling that way. And so I think a similar thing is happening with romantasy, where what used to happen with things getting classed as YA fantasy, maybe now it's like, well, a woman wrote it, and there is a romance that is important in it to some degree. It must be romantasy, which isn't always the case. So I hope publishing will continue to sort out how it is marketing its books to avoid any confusion, because you want books to get to the right readers. That's the big thing, right? So it's important that you can market to the people who want to read it.
Interesting, because a few things popped into my mind when you just said that. Because when I think of again crime fiction, women
Mhm.
usually write far bloodier stories than men do. That's one thing. They are downright scary. And the other thing is that I think, correct me if I'm wrong, of course, that oftentimes readers are underestimated by publishers, meaning that because I ask my
Mhm.
students, for example, they're not big on reading. Some of them are, others not so much. And the question of, especially since they are 14, 13, 14, um, reading a female or a male author, if it would
Mhm.
matter for them. And they said, no, no, it's all about the story. If the story is good, they don't care if it was written by a man or a woman. So,
Yeah. Happy to hear that for their sake. And I think that tracks with what I've experienced as well. I obviously still work in publishing and writing spaces, but I also worked several years in a bookstore and a library. But when I worked in the bookstore, you would experience, parents come to you for
mhm.
recommendations of their kid or their teen, and you might give a recommendation, and the parent will be the one like, well, it's for my son, and that series has a female protagonist, so he wouldn't be interested. And it's like, well, would he not be, or are you not giving him the space to experience that and to explore and realize he actually can empathize with female main characters. So I think a lot of that, if that does develop any sort of preference or disinterest, it's probably driven by, you know, the adults around us and the society around us. But on the other hand, adults around us can drive it the other way and feed into kids' natural openness and
Yeah.
curiosity. So
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that your students are still in that open space of course, that's fine. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what they said more or less. Who cares? It's the story we care about, not so much who, if it was a man or a woman who wrote that.
Yeah, just want a good story.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And uh, there's another thing I wanted to ask you, since you also said you enjoy young adult fiction, and that's what you specialize on as well, and especially in the fantasy genre. I've got the impression that maybe again I'm completely wrong with this, that in the young adult fiction part of fantasy, or even doesn't have to be fantasy, otherwise as well, it's far more interesting themes and topics that are written about, more daring, sometimes even than in the adult field.
That's interesting. Potentially. I think there can be plenty that is interesting thematically in both. But what I find is people expect YA to be more limited than it is. And so just learning that it is as broad as it is, or can address some darker ideas or themes, continues to take people by surprise. But, if you, something like The Hunger Games is young adult,
Mm.
um, and even teen, like depending on where you are classifying things, but usually I'm going with like children's middle grade, YA, adult. So with there, it's young adult, and I think you can address really real world topics and themes, which that series does, among others. Um, yeah, and I think it's important for young adult and even younger age categories to do that. So I think I don't know, I that's what I run into, is people just being surprised and trying to limit it when they shouldn't. And
Hmm.
I think it's important to keep it open, because I love exploring those themes. That's what I want. I want I like some of the thematic elements that are typical to YA, and the coming of age and the coming into one's own,
Hmm.
etc. But young adults experience lots in this world, and so I think, yeah, being able to delve into complex and dark themes is really important to me.
Are indie authors more daring then, do you think? Since you also work for a indie publisher as well, not you do not only do freelance, you also work for literary Wanderlust, as the German word is used
Yeah.
here. Are they more daring, do you think?
I
Authors
think
and indie publishers?
Yeah, definitely the publishers, and so I think chicken and egg situation, so are
Mm.
the authors, because that's where they can find homes for their books. So that's part of why I've really loved working in both self-publishing and indie publishing spaces, is the people writing and editing and publishing in those spaces do, I think, feel more able or willing to take on risk, to be daring, to try new things, to be a little less beholden to the rules, capitalized, as the major publishers. So absolutely, I think the publishers themselves are like that, and then authors who are maybe writing books that are a little less traditional or break the rules, etc., should check that out. Absolutely keep that potentially forefront of your mind as a place to go, because you can find really great support for more daring manuscripts in the indie spaces.
Absolutely agree. Because since doing this podcast, I've read so many wonderful books which wouldn't have discovered otherwise. And
Mhm.
wow.
Yes. Reading more and more indie published books is just an ongoing goal of mine,
Yeah.
because they just consistently blow me away.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many wonderful authors out there, and they deserve to be known. And
Agreed.
they should have a broader audience as well. I mean, you people like Stephen King do not even have to try anymore. I mean, not saying that they don't have to, you know what I mean? Because people would buy them anyway, because
Yep, I agree. And it is tough because it's, things are much more available
yeah,
now with the internet and digital software, etc.,
yeah,
which is wonderful. And also comes with the downside of it there is just more masses of quantity to wade through.
yeah.
And there is so much great stuff and you can never find it all. And as an editor, I mean, I'm not in marketing for very specific reasons, and I like editing. But I do want to be able to help my authors, frankly, more than I can, because it's always playing that game of how do you get the word out? How do you reach the most people? And
Mm,
it's very tough. But I'm glad that there are some spaces for that, and it makes me very very happy whenever folks find
mm,
success that way, which is not infrequently, and that's also important to know.
yeah.
It's not totally doom and gloom out there by any means. Like there's whole communities that exist to uplift each other and to share one another's book news and to read each other's books. And anyway, indie publishing spaces are beautiful, is the takeaway there.
I would say I agree, hearing that from authors and other editors as well. So
Mm.
the one question always is for authors: how do I get myself seen out there? Do editors also struggle with getting seen out there? Because you live from authors that need to see you. So how do you? Market yourself. You said marketing is not your thing, but still, as a freelancer, you still have to market yourself, so to speak. Otherwise, you wouldn't get any work. So
Yeah.
how do you do it?
Also a great question. That's part of what held me back from pursuing freelancing for a couple of years before when I was considering it, took me a couple years to actually take the dive, mostly because I was worried about that aspect, honestly. Um, but I have found good success through a few factors. One of which is it is helpful to be a part of certain organizations, and there are various ones out there, but the biggest one for me is probably the EFA, which is the Editorial Freelancers Association. I'm also part of a group called the LGBTQ Editors Organization. And so, I'm on both directories and authors can find me there. With the EFA, they also have a job list where authors can post a job and then receive applications from editors who, can be like, here's why I think I'm a great fit. And then they have their pick of the cream of the crop. But I've had good success there. The other biggest one, though, probably for me and a lot of people, is the networking. So obviously that requires effort and making connections in the first place. And so you have to put yourself out there and do some marketing to be known at all or join groups. But I have managed to meet enough peers and become part of a couple groups that, I can partake in and offer, my own expertise and they offer theirs and, lovely. And then building out those networks, you can build up a referral network. So, if someone else has an author comes to them with a genre they don't really edit, then they might reach out to their people and be like, who here does fantasy developmental editing? It's like, well, since you ask. So that's been really great. And then of course also the networking from the authors that one works with. So that's the other thing is you do need to get the initial feet in the door, but through some combination of these areas, I think I was able to do that. And generally that's how other editors do. Um, and then once you start having clients, ideally, they will speak highly of you. They will maybe give you a testimonial that you can use in your marketing. But then largely, like with Lori, thank you again, Lori, um, put you in touch with other folks in the industry and other authors who might need your services. And it's just a really great way to support everybody going every direction. The editors support the authors support each other, and then support the editors with expanding the network. So that's what I've found has worked for me.
Coming back to Laurie, did she also mention C.A. Farlow to you?
Yes,
Yeah,
she
that's
is
what I
also
thought.
put me in touch with C.A. Farlow. Yes, absolutely, and that's also been wonderful.
Yes, also friend of the podcast, I might add.
Very nice.
Yeah,
You have friends.
yeah, I would say so. A few, a few. Absolutely. Jennica, may I also ask you, what is the best book you have read recently but haven't edited yourself, but which you would absolutely recommend? Either genre.
That I read recently but did not edit myself.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Oh gosh, what have I read recently that I loved? Um, I had a string of some good ones. I read The Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lo, maybe. Um, that's probably the one I would give. Of course, when I am asked these questions, I automatically forget everything I've read for the past year, but I did read that one last month. I think I'm correct on the names, but it was really lovely. I wanted to stay up late reading it. It was very character driven. It was, a really great snapshot of 1950s in America, specifically, I think San Francisco, with, adding cultural elements and, what it was like to be in the queer community, particularly the lesbian community at the time. Um, and I really appreciated it. I thought it had nuanced portrayals of the various characters, whether they were the main characters at the forefront or, the side characters. Everyone felt genuine to me. And I really appreciate stories that can flesh out characters in whatever limited time they have in a book to feel earned, to feel real and flawed, but also human and sympathetic. Nobody felt like some two-dimensional villain. So I really appreciate that in any story that can do that. And that's going to be my answer, therefore.
Wonderful. It's already. I looked it up. It's already on my Kindle. So
Nice. Yes. Well, I do recommend it.
yeah, it sounded interesting. So bought it, and yeah, looking forward to reading it. They're still on my to be read list. Yeah, well, there are lots of books accumulating on that. Yeah.
I know the to read list is always getting bigger and ever smaller, but
Don't mention it. It's yeah. Thank goodness for the Kindle, because otherwise we would have to buy another house, I suppose. Or I don't know, find a way to store all the books. And I'm bad at giving books away. Can't do it.
it's business. Yeah. I try to do I know it's terrible, but I do try to purge my bookshelves occasionally if I'm like, "No, really, I'm probably not going to pick this up again." I try to narrow it down, but someday our basement will just be wall to wall bookshelves, so
I hear you. I hear you. So it's always good. It's always good to take away my wallet when I go inside a bookshop.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
it's probably a good precaution.
it doesn't always work, but
It's the
just to be
thought that
safe.
counts, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Janika, is there anything else you would like our listeners to know?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm always available. My website is jennicadotsonediting.com, and folks are always welcome to reach out to me with any questions, any thoughts. Happy to do free consultations if people have questions. Do I want people to know anything in particular? I don't know. Just stick with your passions. Like I that's so generic, but I feel like people who who are serious about writing and wanting to publish and get into the industry can hit that wall where it becomes really overwhelming, and it's like, oh, I've learned enough information that I realize that there are some barriers or there's difficulties involved, obviously. But I guess my big takeaway that I would want to share from just my experiences is the general supportiveness of people in these communities. And so that would be my thought, is if you don't already have writing communities, for example, writers, fellow writers, or editors, etc., I recommend finding those spaces because they're just wonderful. they they're very uplifting. People are very supportive. It's absolutely one of those areas where everyone just wants everyone to succeed. And I think being in it together just makes the whole ride worthwhile and just really lifts the burden whenever it can be easy to start doubting oneself or feel like it's not worth the effort. So that's my thought to share, is just the encouragement of, if you ever feel like you're hitting that wall, to ask yourself if you've reached out to anybody lately, or if there are people you can meet and spaces like that to join.
Oh, thank you. And if you're an author out there and you want to get your work out there, get yourself an editor. It makes your
That
book
too.
so much better.
I
Believe
do
me.
agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
True. I speak from experience. It's so much better if you have an editor who knows
Good.
what he or she is doing. Absolutely, because you get blind. You're blinded
Well,
by your own ideas and your own,
mhm.
thoughts.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that, no one can be totally objective on their own work,
Yeah.
which of course applies to editors who are also writers. I think there's no one that cannot benefit from editors, absolutely includes editors, because it really is that matter of getting the outside perspective and somebody
Yep.
to look at things with fresh eyes, and to have world experiences that you don't have, and to be able to point out the assumptions you've made that you don't even realize. Like, even just for basic stuff, like, I thought everyone knew how this little tool works, and someone else is like, "What are you talking about?" So I think it's great. The collaboration, that's the other thing. It's just so helpful in anything.
Yep.
And I think editors are an important part of the collaboration process.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely agree. Therefore, Jennica, thank you so much for
Thank
sharing
you.
your knowledge with us. It was absolutely wonderful talking to you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much. It was lovely talking with you too.
Please wait for me in the green room. I will be with you shortly. Dear listeners, I do hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as my guest and I did. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And you might also take a look at our YouTube channel, where you can also watch this conversation, not just listen to it, but also watch. And I do hope you will tune in for another episode. Until next time.